been reading a little bit about depression recently. Not clinical depression, because clinical depression is a very specific thing, but just the kind of routine depression that all of us feel at certain times. And there was two things I was reading. One was something I reread from a while back, and then something I just read this morning. And the thing I read from a while back was about the different cognitive styles that people who are depressed have from people who are more exuberant, more joyful. And in particular, the different cognitive abilities and styles they have in relation to carrying out certain tasks. And what that was saying, and I can't remember where I found it, it's probably in Scientific American, it was saying that people who are exuberant, people who are joyful and happy, perform very well at tasks which require divergent thinking, creative tasks of some kind. So if you ask the person who is exuberant to list as many things as they can, as many uses as they can for a paperclip, they'll come up with dozens very, very quickly, typically. That kind of generative, as I say, divergent task. Someone who's depressed, on the other hand, will perform very badly at that. They will not be able to do it. Conversely, it was saying in this article, tasks which require rumination and focus and analysis, things like mathematical solving problems, particularly ones with lots of variables, those kinds of, where you have to hold lots of things in mind simultaneously and work the details out. Those kinds of tasks, people who are exuberant perform very badly at those, and of course, as you might expect, people who are depressed perform better. And in fact, people who are, if you measure the same person during the course of an emotional cycle, so to speak, that individual person will perform better at divergent tasks when they're in a good mood, and will perform better at analytical tasks when they're depressed. So there does seem to be something about those feeling states which correlates with different task solving abilities. The article I was reading this morning, which was in Scientific American Mind, I don't think it's the most recent one, it was a little bit older than that, but it was giving a kind of evolutionary account of that, and obviously they do come out as just so stories, these things, sometimes, so I don't know, but anyway, it was giving partly an evolutionary account of why natural selection might select for depression, not clinical depression as I say, but just the ability to be down, and also relating that to things like brain function, in particular biochemical and electrochemical things that are actually happening to you, and what they do to you and what they make you feel like. And what it was saying there was, it wasn't talking about exuberance, it was talking about depression, and it was specifically about how, again, this experimental finding that depressed people perform well at better analytical tasks. It was giving a kind of explanation for that and how it relates to other symptoms of depression. So, for example, other symptoms of depression might be loss of appetite, loss of libido, you don't feel like you want to engage in any kind of sexual activity when you're depressed, typically. The desire to not seek company, you want to be by yourself. Passivity and lethargy, you don't want to get up and move about. What else? Yeah, kind of gnawing and worrying sensation, so you keep an inability to come off the topic that you're thinking about, you know what I mean? It eats away at you, don't you, typically, if you're in a depressive frame of mind. You keep coming back to the problem, you can't get away from it. Those are the symptoms. And in this article, it kind of mapped those symptoms onto particular areas of the brain that are doing things, and other parts of the brain that are being shut down to optimize those particular activities. I'm sorry, I can't remember the details of this, but the idea is that that's your brain and your body trying to put itself into a state in which particular kinds of problems are best addressed, problems that require not divergent thinking, not lots of different ideas sparking off and dissociative connections being made, but the exact opposite, the shutting down of that kind of playfulness in favour of a much more tightly focused, much more narrow activation pattern, if you like, a much more sustained relationship to a particular problem. You know, because if you're doing a maths problem, and the examples in this thing I read this morning, if you're engaged in a kind of social problem, because social problems are typically very complex. You know, you have to hold lots of variables in your mind, aren't you? If you're trying to work out the details of a move in a relationship, or you're depressed about the particular way a relationship's going, and you need to find a way to improve it, perhaps. That's a difficult problem. There's lots and lots of variables, because obviously other people and relationships themselves are complicated things, in a way which is analogous, at least, to the way that complicated mathematical problems have lots of variables in them and lots of different pieces to hold in place simultaneously. So to do that, you have to be able to narrow things down. You can't allow yourself to engage in divergent thinking. Ideally, you should cut out distractions. So those parts of the brain which favour desire, you know, the attraction for sexual congress, or those activities which you know, get you up on your feet and moving about, with all of the chaotic tangle of brain activity that's initiated with moving. That's suppressed, and you need to be away from people, because other people are a distraction. Helpful sometimes, but a distraction at others. So weirdly enough, it seems, at least according to this article, the things that you tend to do, the things that your body tries to get you to do when you're depressed, are probably exactly the kinds of things which you would need to do when faced with a complex social or mathematical problem. I mean, it's just unfortunate. I don't know if it's just unfortunate, but it is unfortunate that you do feel like shit whilst you're doing it. You know, for some reason, I don't know what the explanation for this is, you don't get this, it's not a neutral, Guy, come on pup, it's not a neutral feeling, this need to get to be by yourself, this need to avoid other people, this need to avoid food and sex, this need to focus down isn't neutral. It comes with all this feeling of I don't know, low self-esteem, or a feeling of unwantedness, or whatever it may be, you know. Come on pups, this way. Which is a bit unfortunate, really. If there was a way of being depressed that didn't involve those, it would probably be a great thing. I mean, just in terms of treatment, one of the things that just kind of mentioned a bit at the end was about treatment, saying that you know, treatments which try to get you to snap out of it, you know, either the informal ones where people say, oh, come on, cheer up, or go and take yourself out for a walk, get some exercise, that'll make you feel better. It's bogus advice, because that's not what the person needs in order to deal with the problem that they feel they have. And similarly, you know, more conventional allopathic treatments, you know, drug treatments or counselling treatments may well not work, and often don't work, because they relieve what we think of as the symptoms, but which are actually the processes. You know, they try to restore your appetite, or they try to artificially elevate your mood, which doesn't allow you to solve the problem. It just reintroduces more divergent thinking into your brain activity, so the problem stays around. What seems to work better is techniques for positive rumination, so things like expressive writing, or apparently, or counselling techniques which are about talking and listening. You know, ways to process the information, ways to actually deal with the problem, try and solve it. I guess just like if you try to solve a complex maths problem, it's good if you've got a pen and paper handy, or a pocket calculator. Yeah, so I thought that was interesting. As I say, it's a shame it makes you feel shit.